Chapter 17. Walking cautiously following the farm road and keeping behind trees, Hannah stilled. It could have been that she noticed the lack of sound of wolves howling, which had tormented her for miles. She didn't think they would continue to hunt her, because she left their territory miles behind her. Only the sound of birds, and an occasional large bird swooping down looking for a mouse, caught her attention. She realized that some animals were predators, and some were prey. But she had to figure out not to become prey. Then the chirping and screeching of birds in a distance caused alarm in her. The signs of predators uneased her. That's what Jovani represented to her now. A predator of the worst kind. That's why he had been in that alley that night, when the other predators had spotted her as being weak. But he was the ultimate predator, and she had been his prey, but no more, she vowed. The reality of what had happened to her in a short time took over, and she slowed down, being careful to look behind her. There were forces she didn't understand and never would. But she wouldn't become anyone's target or victim again. She had more than herself to think about. She had to consider her baby. She placed her hand on her stomach as if she was a mother calming a baby who had cried for milk when there was none. Hannah had finally made it to this farm road in West Virginia, and now had crossed over it to the other side, away from the wolves' hunting grounds. Walking slow, watching daylight in the west fade behind the trees, she knew at this time she would be at her most vulnerable. She sucked in a breath, regained her strength, and ran some more for miles just on adrenaline. It had been fight or flight, and there was no way she would or could fight wolves hunting in packs in their own territory. The common sense thing to do was to run, and don't look back, as Lisa had instructed. There would be homes she could stop there and ask for help. Beg for food and a phone to call her family for help. Her stomach ached and she patted it. She knew it was her baby begging for something to eat. And that's when she came across a row of blackberries growing wild. She stopped and picked some, being careful to watch the thorns. As she hurriedly snatched them from the vine, with a mouthful she glanced around and said, "Even food have protection to keep from being endangered." She smiled and stuffed some berries into the pockets sewn on the dress to eat later, and she left the rest for the birds. Hiking up and down the road, staying on the fringe of the sometimes gravel and sometimes black top, hoping to see anyone pass by in a car. She heard a noise like a loud engine. It sounded like a large vehicle moving along the road, and she turned behind her to spot a big wheel truck. As the lights on the large truck grew brighter with the setting of the sun, she noticed a woman about 40, blonde with mingled gray hair, sitting high in the cab driving alone. Feeling as if she could trust the driver, she stepped out on the side of the road and waved her hands upward, quickly, side to side. The eight-wheeler came to a full stop down the road. She ran for the passenger door, and it opened. Panting and out of breath, her hands shaking and legs trembling, she managed to climb in. Hannah lay her head back and closed her eyes for a moment and inhaled. "Child, what are you doing in this part of the woods?" Hannah's eyes snapped open. She had only a minute to think before she would answer. Few people would believe her, and those that would were nowhere near. "I ran away from my abusive husband," she said, her voice trembling and soft. The woman looked in sympathy, as if she knew and had traveled the road of an abusive husband before. "I understand if you don't want to talk about it," the heavy-set woman said. She wore a white shirt and coffee-stained jeans. Her chest wide and her stomach large, as if she had been drinking her share of beer. Her blonde hair styled upward and full, as if the 70s or 80s had been good years for her, and she would live them for as long as possible. "You don't have to tell me about it if you don't want to." Her voice low, her eyes wide and soft with sympathy and concern. "Where are you headed?" She turned her face to Hannah for a second, and then back to the road. "To New York. Back home." Hannah looked away out the window as the truck passed up trucks spewing smoke, in wood-frame houses where wind and rain had eaten away at the paint. Near the houses, there were clotheslines filled with last night's wash of torn sheets and old jeans. "You're in luck if you don't mind riding with me. I'm headed for New Jersey." Just outside the tunnel. I have a bed in the back and some food. I would offer you something to wear, but looking at your petite shape, nothing I have will fit you. She shot Hannah a wide-closed smile. Just food and water, thank you. And I'd like to get some rest. I can call my friend to pick me up from New Jersey. I hope I'm not a burden. Just trying to pay it forward, hun. Someone helped me once. My name's Grace. My name's Hannah. Grace turned her head to the front and continued driving down the road without saying where she came from. Hannah didn't want to know anymore, and Grace, uncharacteristic of a woman alone and her age, didn't say any more or ask any questions. Maybe she was just a listener and not a talker. She turned on the country and western station and then talk radio. Listening to the drone of voices made Hannah sleepy. Hannah thought about Lisa. She had to help her family find some closure by telling them in person what had happened to her. But she had to get to New York and informed her family first that she would be coming home. Afterward, she would contact the authorities in Virginia to make certain they knew about that place she had just escaped from. Hannah woke when the noise of the truck stopped. You must have been tired. You slept for over 400 miles. 8 hours. I think it was the first time I had eaten in a while and I felt safe, Hannah said, looking around trying to familiarize herself. A gas station, good, she thought. Lots of cars and no chance someone could get to her. You're safe now. Before you went out like a light, you said that you had to call a friend. You forgot to call your friend. Here. While I gas up, call your friend and I'll climb back here and rest. Here, go inside and eat something, Grace said, after reaching inside a tray and handing her money and her phone. How can I pay you back? You don't have to. Just doing something for a lost girl is enough for me. I've been there before. Grace opened the door, and before she stepped out of the cab she said to Hannah, Do you need anything else? No. I have everything I need. She put in Gabriella's number and it rang, but she didn't answer. Hannah let it ring and ring. Come on, Gabby, answer. Wake up. Yeah? Hannah heard stirring on the other end of the phone. Gabby, it's me. For fuck's sake, Hannah. Where the fuck are you? Everyone thought you were dead. There's a missing report out on you again. You should have seen that alert on a flashing billboard somewhere. Why haven't you called? I'm in New Jersey. Now I know you must be dead. I couldn't call. I'll tell you about it after you come to Secaucus at a truck stop and get me. What the fuck are you doing at a truck stop? Hannah's in New Jersey. Who are you talking to? Don't tell anyone anything about me. You have to promise. It's important. It's Chase. He's half sleepy and doesn't know who I'm talking to. Just get dressed and come get me. Please. I'll text you the directions. Hannah sat eating a large helping of scrambled eggs and an English muffin by the window in a booth alone at a gas station restaurant, when she glanced up and spotted Gabriella's black Porsche drive up. Standing and waving as if she thought Gabriella could see her, she realized that she had to get outside before Gabriella took off. But Gabriella, looking around, decided to park in front, in the handicap lane, and she stepped outside the car. Hannah paid her check and dashed for the door of the restaurant before Gabriella gave up and climbed back into her Porsche. How the hell are you? Gabriella said, looking at Hannah, who stood wearing a cotton dress and flip-flops on this cool spring day. You look like you've packed on a little weight. But those clothes. I'd say you look like a fugitive on the run. She passed her hand over Hannah's stomach. Hannah gazed at her and rolled her sad eyes. Gabriella stood back after hugging Hannah and said, Don't tell me? You're pregnant. Hannah said to her, We can't stand here and talk. It's not safe. Hannah pulled Gabriella's hand away and walked around to the car. Gabriella climbed in at the same time Hannah did. I'm not starting this car until you tell me anything, and preferably the truth. What do you mean it's not safe? It's a long story. Now start the car, Hannah said, looking to her left and then to her right and behind. I bet the fuck it is. Seeing the look of Hannah's expression and feeling that Hannah had been through something awful, Gabriella did start the car and roared out of the parking lot and onto the highway and then the tunnel into Manhattan.